this episode of the Video Dojang classroom, we're going to talk about how to fold an origami water bomb. Now, the water bomb is the first origami that we teach within Shin Kwan, and it's very popular with our member schools that have summer camps for obvious reasons. The kids make these and fill them up with water and throw them at each other. A water bomb is a square container that is used to hold water. Just like a water balloon, except for it's a lot more fragile and it will break a lot easier. So we're going to start with a piece of origami paper. It's got a pattern on one side and it's simply white on the other side. But you could use any piece of paper. And actually, in the very beginning, sometimes it's easier for younger kids to actually use copy paper. It's a little easier. It's a little more forgiving on the folds. So we're going to start with this piece of origami paper, and we're going to place it on the ground so that the top and bottom are parallel to my body. I'm going to fold the top toward me to the bottom. Now, I realize that a lot of people that are watching this are not people that fold origami on a regular basis, so I'm going to not use any origami terms and instead just stick with plain old English. So I fold it in half, and then I'm going to unfold it. This time I'm going to put the crease so that it's straight up and down perpendicular to my body, so in other words facing away from me, and I'm going to do the same fold. So I'm going to take the top and fold it toward me. It's very, very important that all the edges are lined up as straight as possible and that the creases are well creased. Now when I open it up, you can see that there's actually a plus with the creases. Now I turn the piece of paper over and I put it on the ground so that it's a triangle, or a diamond I should say, in front of me. And now I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to fold the tip that's furthest away from me toward me. So now I'm making a triangle instead of a rectangle. And again, making sure that this is lined straight up. I apologize for this being so difficult for me, but I'm trying to hug a tripod while I'm doing this. Probably should have figured out a better way to set the camera up. Alright. And then I open that back up, again with the crease facing away from me, and fold it toward me again, making another triangle. So that was a total of 4 folds. Creasing it. Alright, so once I've done that, I'm going to open it back up and put it on the ground. And as you can see, it actually starts to rise up in the center. So what I'm going to do is, let me try to focus this a little bit. There we go. I'm going to pinch the sides in and lay it flat so that I have a triangle with the open part facing me. Now I'm going to take one of the tips, not both of them. See, there's 2 tips here, the top one and the bottom one. I'm just going to take the top one and I'm going to fold that tip up to the very top. And I'm going to make sure that it exactly touches the top and crease. So now this line here lines up exactly with the one crease that was in my piece of paper. I'm going to do that with the other side, and I'm going to turn it over and do the same thing on the back, making sure that I line it up perfectly straight with the tips and the lines are all matching. Flip it over, same thing on the other side. And again, I was a little off. And now the other one. Now, depending on if you rotated it like I did or not, one end is going to have a bunch of these flappy things and the other end's not. You want to, at this point, have the flappy pieces pointing towards you. Now we have a diamond again, but a much smaller diamond. Now, just like before, we're going to be folding the tips. This time we have 2 tips pointing out on the right. We have two tips pointing out on the left. We're going to take the top tip that's on the right, and we are going to fold it straight in to the center line. Like that. Straight into the center line. And then I'm going to take the other side and do exactly the same thing so that the tips touch. And there you go. As you can see, it's coming unfolded just a little bit, but that's fine. You can see that the tips are touching each other. Flip it over, do the same thing on the other side, making sure that the edges on both sides are exactly the same. Like that. Now when we're finished, this is what it should look like at this point. Let me zoom in so you can see it better. There. I'll stay zoomed in since we're using a smaller piece now. Alright, at this point, again, you're going to have one end that has openings and the other end is not going to have openings. So you want the opening part facing you. And what we're going to do is we're going to take one of the tips. Now there's two tips on the top and there's two tips on the bottom that are loose. We're going to take the the top right tip, and we're going to pull it straight out so that it folds right on the line of this piece. Now it's interesting, in every single origami book I've ever seen, this step is not included. And when I actually fold this, I don't do this step either. The reason that I do this, and I'm doing it on the video, is I found that when I'm teaching this to younger people, I mean anywhere from like 13 years and younger, it really helps them. And actually, it helps adults also, especially if it's the first time they've folded origami. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this straight out and then fold it right on the line that was there. This line, but the one that's over here. I'm going to do that with both pieces on the top and flip it over and do both pieces that are now on the top that were on the bottom. And at this point, this is a good indication of how well you've been folding, if these pieces all line up with each other. But now it kind of looks like a flower. Alright, so now I'm going to unfold all those again, and the reason we folded that is just to create a fold line. Because when we make the next step, we're going to have to do a fairly fancy fold. It's actually going to be the most difficult fold of this piece of origami. And by having this fold that we just created there, it's going to make it a lot easier. Alright, so again, I still have these two pieces on the top. I'm going to take one of the tips, and it doesn't matter which one, I'll take the one on the right, and I'm going to fold the tip to the tips that are touching right here. So I'm going to fold that up so it's touching those other two tips. And I'm going to do that, as you can see, here it is. I just folded that up to the other two tips. I'm going to do that with all four of them. So the two on the front, and then flip it over, and the two on the back. Okay, so there we go. I have two of them on the front and two of them on the back folded up. Now this, as I said, this is going to be the most challenging, especially for the younger folders. So what we're going to do, hold on one second, let me just turn the focus on. What we're going to do is these two big flaps that I folded so that the tips touch, if I pull one of them up, I can actually stick my finger in that and make a hole. Like that. I'm going to take the tip, the piece that I just folded right here, and I'm going to put my thumb underneath it and fold it up and into that hole. Pushing it in so that once it's all the way in there, it's completely inside. Like that. A lot of times what happens is people will make the hole, they'll make the little cave thing here with their finger, And instead of folding it in, they'll actually just stuff this tip in like this. And then you get something that looks like that when you're finished, which is no good. So you leave it folded, and you stick your thumb underneath, and you just fold it up and into the hole. And then push down, and it should be completely gone when you're finished. So as you can see, both of them are folded up inside, and you can't see them anymore. Alright, flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. Make the hole with your finger, fold that in on both of them. Alright, so now we have it on both sides. Good, we only have pretty much 2 more folds left. I'm going to take this tip and fold it up to these 2 tips. It doesn't matter if it's the top or the bottom, because we're doing it with both. And then rotate it and do it with the other end and fold it up. Now one's going to be thicker than the other one, especially if you're using copy paper, and it's going to be a little bit more challenging to fold, but that's okay. Now I'm going to unfold them, turn the whole thing over, and do it again the opposite direction. So we're creating a pretty strong crease in 2 places on this box. There we go. And then I'm going to unfold them again. So now, as you can see, I have a pretty strong crease right there and right there. Alright, last thing you're going to do, you're going to take it, turn it so it's straight up and down, and pull it apart on the top and pull it apart on the bottom so that you have a plus sign like this, or an X depending on how you're looking at it. One end will not have a hole, this end doesn't, and one end will have a hole, which this one does. It's a pretty small hole, but there's a hole there. So what you're going to do is you're going to take, and without getting it too wet, you're going to put this end up to your mouth and blow air into it. And once you do, the box is going to inflate, and you have a water bomb. Now, you can look at it and make any fixes that you might need. For example, right here, it's a little off, so you can kind of pull on it and crease it. If you have to, you can blow a little bit more air into it. Now, to fill it full of water, one side and one side only is going to have a little teeny hole. So what you do is you just take one finger and push down, and it's going to make a fairly large hole right there. And you can just pour water into it. Now, depending on how thick the paper is, this can hold water for a surprisingly long amount of time. So you fill it up with water all the way up, and you hold it so that you're holding the bottom, and you can just throw it at someone. And the kids absolutely love this, and unlike water balloons, there's no stinging involved because they basically just fall apart on impact. And it teaches the children how to fold origami, and they absolutely love throwing them at each other.